How do you get anything that you want in your life? Literally anything. In this lesson, I'll explain exactly how, and it's only using one word. Ask yourself this question: what do I want in my life? What is a perfect day for me? What is a perfect moment? Where do I live? Who am I with? What is my job? Do I have a job? What does my house look like? How many kids do I have? What does my body look like? What do I eat every day? How fast am I? How strong? How much money do I have? Etc., etc. I know that's a lot of questions, but this type of visioneering, as it's called, is absolutely essential for you to be able to understand the power of sacrifice. There's the word. In fact, if you're sitting at home or have the opportunity, this is so important that I want you to get out a pen and a paper, if you can, and actually write out your ultimate future, your best day ever, your best week, the greatest, most optimized version of yourself. Who is she? Who is he? Write it down in as much detail as possible. Use as many words as necessary, and don't be shy. If the answer is 1 billion, don't lie to yourself and say 1 million. If your answer is a house in London and a house in the Bahamas, write down both. If your foundation actually cured cancer, then stake your claim in that soil. Now you have something to aim for, a prophecy to self-fulfill, a destiny to help manifest, a future to walk towards, a flag out off on the horizon to look at. And by the way, I'll give you a quick test. If you're not willing to do this simple exercise, if you're not willing to write down where you want to be in the future for yourself and for your family and for your loved ones, then you're probably not going to be able to get there. One, because you don't have a target to walk towards, and two, because if you can't sacrifice these 10 minutes to write something down, well, then you probably filtered yourself out of the race before you even started. For me, I've done this so many times, at least once a year I do it. And it always changes, by the way. You should always be evolving. If you evolve as a person, so too will your goals. What you thought was so important in your 20s, now laughable in your 30s. And all that in your 30s is inconsequential compared to the wisdom of old age. And on and on and on the story goes. But no matter, we keep articulating ourselves to ourselves, forgiving our past selves along the way. But here's the most important part. Your goals will require here's the word, sacrifice. Sacrifice, as I'm sure you can imagine, requires a what for. Without this big why, sacrifice is an empty sound. Hence the previous thought experiment. Because listen, here's the thing about sacrifice. It's actually quite simple. It's just doing something in the present that is less than absolutely momentarily and hedonistically ideal to bet on a potentially better future. It's an exchange, now for then, the present for the coming. Depending upon the specific goal that you're trying to work towards, depending upon the specific potential aspect of your future that you want, you will necessarily have to create a plan in order to work towards that goal. For example, let's say your future self is a triathlete level athlete. Okay? Someone who is strong, obviously healthy, fit, and by the way, probably a pretty attractive version of yourself. Not bad. Triathlon or not, you have a physical fitness goal, right? I'm sure we all have some version of this. So then, once you have the potential future written down in detail, you can then backtrack from there to where you are now. Then you create a bit of a plan. What will that require of me? What will I have to do day in and day out? Well, you'll have to control your alcohol consumption probably, will you not? Or how about sugar? Maybe less sugar, less soda. Maybe you shouldn't eat that pizza all the time, right? How many times a day should you go to the gym or work out? And what types of workouts should you do? Should you maybe walk there, or should you always take your car? Or how about that pastry? Maybe an apple instead. Maybe a salad instead of a sandwich. Take the stairs or the elevator. The truth is that the answers to these questions are absolutely easy when you have the goal. It does not take a PhD nutritionist or an Olympic level athlete trainer to answer these questions. You know it. They're obvious. And yet we usually choose unwisely. But why? Well, it's also obvious, is it not? Because we're not willing to sacrifice now for later. But yeah, this is a bit of an oversimplification, and here's why. Because in fact, most of the time, we are not even making a conscious choice. We are magnetically, almost unthinkingly, like zombies in our actions. We're not choosing the pastry over our health because we're not choosing. And I know this is going to seem a little crazy, but I want you to imagine like this. Imagine if every time you were about to eat that morning pastry, a magic button popped up in front of you. And every time you pushed that button, you felt the rush of adrenaline that comes with finishing a triathlon, okay? Or have you ever looked in the mirror and felt truly, profoundly proud of yourself? Have you ever reached the top of the hill before? How did that feel? It feels amazing, does it not? It feels like you're walking on air. It's like a rush coming from your gut. It's like nothing ever when you accomplish some physical goal. You think this is what it feels like to be alive. That feeling, that intensity. Imagine that feeling instead of eating the pastry. You push the button and bam, you're transported into the future of that heightened state. Would you choose the pastry or would you choose that feeling? The ecstasy of winning the race. You would choose the accomplishment button every single time. You know you would. And here's why. Because you can always eat another pastry. Every single morning, forever and ever, there's always the morning bagel. There will forever exist another brownie sundae. Those are my favorite. There's always another YouTube video or another TikTok video to watch instead of making another sales call or finishing that website. And look, I'm not saying never have a brownie sundae or never watch TV. But what I'm saying is that you should every time know what you're doing. You have to make a choice. See the button in your third eye. Bring it to your present consciousness. Acknowledge that you are choosing present hedonism against a more optimal future. And if you do, if you go through this mental exercise, I promise you, you will more often than not choose your future instead of your present because you know it's worth it, because you can feel it, because you know you deserve it, that your future self deserves it, that you can get there, and that you and your family and your entire world even deserves the best version of you. A very short version of this whole lesson is the following. What would your better self do? If you choose rightly every single time in order to become the best version of you, what would that person do? When would they wake up? What would they do in the morning? What would they eat? How would they act at work? Would they be quick to anger or would they forgive? Would they succumb to the pleasantries of the darkness or would they choose light? Would they take care of their family or would they be a victim? Would they blame their circumstances or would they find a way? Would they sacrifice for the collective future of everyone else or would they choose their momentary self? Because here's the thing, sacrifice, as I said earlier, it's kind of a simple concept. Hold off now for a better future. But it's difficult because we don't use it properly. We allow this knife to dull. We let it wither and decay. We let it go. We leave it as some esoteric concept, sacrifice, to be used once every so often, when in fact, sacrifice should be a daily practice. It's almost religious. So step one, imagine your future self. What does that person do? What do they have? What do they impart? How do they act? Then step two, in every single situation of your life, get out of your own momentary ego. Rise above and ask yourself this question. What would my ideal best self do? See that button, manifest that future reality into your present, smell it, taste it, feel it, touch it, and then step three, choose your higher self. And the more often you do this, the more often you remind yourself of the choices that you're always making, that we are always making, the more often you will sacrifice. And the more often you sacrifice, the sooner you will become who the world deserves and who you can be. I hope you're looking forward to it because I sure as hell am. Cheers. Until next time. Thanks for listening.